still Mr. Smoke, not a pop. Get your baby mommy pop, with my other snobby bop. If I love her, probably not. Know your shit is not as hot as anything I fucking drop. Bitch, I'm in the zone, stand alone like my collie cop.
Odd Future were one of the biggest collectives on the entire planet and took the world by storm in the late 2000s and early 2010s. They were one of the very first collectives to really make use of the internet, whether it be Twitter or MySpace. I mean, just look at the Free L campaign that spread all across the world in 2011. But now, over a decade later, when talking about Odd Future, people automatically think of Frank Ocean, Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler the Creator, and I don't blame them. These are the three stars, the three Odd Future members who stayed in the spotlight, the three Odd Future members who are still in the mainstream media over 10 years since their own breakthroughs. But I'm here to talk about the secret gem of Odd Future, the once humorous MC who could have easily transcended into a star, but decided to take his own path, staying true to himself. This MC is now a very well respected member of the underground hip hop scene and has went from a young, almost goofy rapper to a rapper who delivers serious and thoughtful content and has worked with the likes of Anderson .Paak, Mac Miller, The Alchemist, Freddie Gibbs, Michi Darko, Prodigy, Action Bronson, Schoolboy Q, Madlib, Juicy J and many more. I'm obviously talking about the one and only Domo Genesis.
You know what I'm saying? And like I said, I came from so far down at the bottom, like me even getting to where I am now, I'm not comfortable yet. I feel like there's more for me. I feel like even on the album I say my life story gotta be worth somebody's time, because I feel like there's more for me. There's a reason that I'm here and I'm meant to inspire people, you know?
Dominic Cole, otherwise known as Domo Genesis, grew up in Inglewood, California, and as he got older he developed a friendship with Tyler the Creator before attending Arizona State University. But the musician would soon drop out of the degree to focus on rapping as he was invited to join the Bloomin' Odd Future collective in 2009. Domo was really raw in terms of his rapping ability at this time, which was expected as he was still young. In this same year he made his debut on Tyler's first mixtape, Bastard, on the track Pigs Fly. This was most likely a lot of people's first introduction to the young rapper. In 2010, Genesis would release his debut mixtape, Rollin' Papers, with the production being handled by Tyler, Left Brain and Sid. Like I said earlier, this mixtape is very raw, but this record earned Domo his stripes and earned the rapper a growing fan base. You see, around this time, Domo was often in the shadow of the other Odd Future members. Mr. Smoke a Lot of Pot was in the background, but this tape showed his potential. Tracks like Supermarket showed off Domo's potential as an MC, but around this time he was still focused on making the humorous, funny content that Odd Future were all making around this time. He possessed the talent but couldn't nail it down. A review at the time said, Domo Genesis will only ever live as an Odd Future afterthought. Well, they couldn't be more wrong. With Odd Future gaining more and more momentum as each week passed, Domo would release his second mixtape, Under the Influence, in 2011. Once again this was released for free, and once again it was hit with mixed reception. The general consensus was that Genesis was a really talented rapper, with bags of potential, but his ear for production was letting him down. But you could tell Domo was working on his technical skill, as from a technical standpoint he was better here. Tracks like Mission Statement and his own rendition of Kanye West's We Major prove this. But Genesis seemed stuck at a crossroads at this time. He was caught up in the success of Odd Future, but it also seemed like he wanted to carve out his own image, but he was struggling to do that. Before I move on, here is a snippet of Smoke 'Em On from this tape. Possibly the greatest piece of music in history.
Try to get all the THC all up in my brain. Smoke 'em all, gotta smoke 'em, it's you and we. I know it's my destiny. Smoke 'em all, oh, you're my best friend.
In this same year, Domo featured on Tyler's studio album, Goblin, and also played a role in the compilation album, 12 Odd Future Songs. This tape only raised Odd Future stocks, and in turn raised popularity of the young rapper. 2012 was the busiest year for the rapper to date. Odd Future Tape Volume 2 was released, which was the collective's hottest moment to date. It was a moment, and their popularity hit new levels. Domo featured on 6 tracks, most notably on the classic track Oldie, which is still the collective's biggest track to date, and is one of the most notable songs of the 2010s. Once again, Genesis displayed amazing technical ability, but critics and fans alike still thought there was something missing. The general argument was that Domo was a magnificent MC, but hadn't quite realised his potential. And what was the biggest issue with his earlier mixtapes with critics? Well, it was the production choice. They often said Genesis had a poor ear for beats. So what better way to silence the critics than to link up with one of the greatest producers of all time for an 11-track mixtape? Well, that's what he did. No Idols released in the summer of 2012, and well, to me, it's his best work to date, and one of the best projects of the 2010s. The Alchemist is probably the most important piece of the 2010s underground hip-hop scene, and he helped Genesis tap into that potential he showed on his earlier mixtapes. It isn't just the production though, it's also the feature list. Action Bronson, Vince Staples, Smoke DZA, Prodigy, Freddie Gibbs, Space Ghost Pep, and his Odd Future counterparts Tyler and Earl. Domo matured so much on this tape, yet he still throws in the occasional pot or humorous bar, but his content matured so much from his earlier tapes. Once again, he shows off an amazing technical ability and skill, but the content matches it this time, which creates an amazing mixtape.
Fuck it, 2 tears in a bucket, cause these fuckers could never touch us. In the midst of the calm, we bringin' ruckus. Bitches, nothing in the discussion, or we'll be double clutching. Leave a chunk, looking slump, give a punk a fucking concussion.
To me, this was when Genesis decided to take his own path. He had the ability and popularity to transcend into the mainstream hip-hop scene, but I don't think Domo was interested in that. Maybe he was, but I don't think he was. I think Domo wanted to stay true to himself. So in the height of his popularity, he hopped on a tape with The Alchemist with pretty much no radio-friendly tracks and delivered one of the greatest mixtapes of the decade. It wasn't just this though. Domo would also feature on The Odd Future show, Lighter Squad, further boosting his popularity, while he also began releasing his own medical marijuana strain, Domo OG. 2013 was the year of the features from Genesis, whether it be Rusty off Tyler's Wolf, 2 tracks off Earl Sweatshirt's Doris, or his spot on Prodigies in The Alchemist Albert Einstein. Domo was known to the mainstream, but he was beginning to gather motion and notoriety within the underground hip-hop scene. Also notably, in the same year he released a collab tape with fellow Odd Future members Hodgie and Left Brain, titled Mellow High. In 2014 he released the sequel to his Under the Influence mixtape. The same reviewer who once said he would be an Odd Future afterthought now praised this mixtape and said that Genesis was more than valuable to the Odd Future collective. He was moving from the Odd Future collective sound, choosing his own path, with more contemporary hip-hop song structures, instrumentals that allow a true MC to flourish. The Doom, Nas and Mobb Deep influence was there, but Genesis was his own beast, with a flawless flow and his own unique cadence. I mean, there isn't much more of a compliment to his ability than being the only artist to feature twice on Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's classic album Pinata. At this point, Domo had been rapping for 6 years, and there hadn't been a debut album. It was rumoured for a 2014 release, but that quickly passed, and so did 2015 apart from a few guest appearances. Then came March 2016, and Genesis hit the shelves. His debut was a culmination of consistency. He'd been rapping for 7 years at this point, but finally his album was here. You see, Domo was always existing on the edge of his friend's fame, constantly trying to prove himself and get out the shadow. Earl was the child prodigy, Tyler the abrasive leader, and Frank the silent genius. Genesis was looked at as just another backpack rapper who loved pot, but as the collective fell apart around him, he stayed consistent, rapping harder, owning his skills and becoming more technically proficient. He explores that on his debut album. He's searching for answers to keep rapping, and he comes to the conclusion that he has just put in way too many hours to just quit. The once stoner rapper now explored paranoia, internal doubt, and industry politics. The Odd Future bubble had burst, but Genesis took his own path. He figured out his own worth. This was an amazing debut album. I mean, it was 7 years in the waiting. He put together a tracklist of Mac Miller, Wiz Khalifa, Juicy J, Anderson .Paak and many more, while the soulful production allowed him the headroom to unravel his mind. This isn't exactly an underground album or anything. 2 of the songs on here have over 35 million streams on Spotify alone. But do you know how I said the tape with Alchemist was the beginning of Genesis choosing his own path? Well, I'd say this is the middle point. In the following year, Domo would release his 4th mixtape, Red Corolla. This is one of my favourite Domo projects to date, and it's crazy seeing the progression from his early work, and more people were realising that Genesis was getting further and further away from his earlier image as each project passed. He raps over 70s soul samples and his laid-back rapping style complements it perfectly. It's one of the most underrated releases of 2017. In January 2018, he would link up with Evidence for an 8-track mixtape that further cemented the idea that Domo had come to terms that he wasn't going to hit it large. No mainstream appeal at all. Instead, a true hip-hop tape, even getting a guest feature from the legendary rapper Fonte. Genesis is as focused as ever on this tape. I mean, the track Me vs Me is a great execution of battling your own reflection. It's another solid addition to his great catalogue. In the same year, he would release the very underrated EP, Facade Records, which is another short and sweet addition to his discography, with features from Cos, IDK, King Chip and Buddy. Then we hit 2019. Not a single release, couple of features. Then we hit 2020. Not a single release, couple of features. Domo went missing. The same goes for 2021. No release. But in this year he had a standout performance linking up with Tyler again for the track Manifesto off Call Me If You Get Lost. In an album that features Lil Wayne, Lil Uzi Vert, Pharrell Williams, Brent Faiyaz, NBA Youngboy and many more, Genesis had the best feature to me, and that is just a testament to how talented he really is. I'm sure COVID played a part in his absence, but the fans wanted to know when his next project would come. Now here we are in 2022, and a few weeks ago Domo and Evidence linked up again for another amazing tape, intros, outros and interludes. Over a decade since his debut mixtape, and the difference is unbelievable. This is really up there with No Idols for his best work to date. Evidence handles the production once again and gives Genesis the perfect sonic palette for him to get everything off his chest. Technically, Domo is a whole new level on this and brings it on every track, and it has amazing features from Navy Blue, Remy Banks, Evidence himself and Boldy James. It's a contender for the best hip hop release of 2022 so far. Like I said, Domo was a young star, breaking out with Odd Future, but after years of wandering, he chose his own path and has now cemented himself as a really important figure within the underground hip hop scene, and I really respect that, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him. Anyway, thank you for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you.